What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to another episode. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with Blessing Kayode. I first found her on YouTube during Yoruba lessons and just been checking out her work and the great stuff that she has going on. So it's an honor to sit down with her today. Do you want to just give a brief introduction about yourself, who you are, what you do?
So my name is Blessing Kayode. I live in London, but I have been to Nigeria recently, and I'd like to return back. I teach Yoruba lessons. So Yoruba lessons, that's my full-time job, but I qualified as a barrister or an attorney in 2019, so end of last year. And now I also run yorubalessons.com. So just a website where you can take independent lessons online, can buy some Yoruba merch, stuff like that, and African-inspired prints and stuff.
Mm. So with passing the bar, that's something very important and very crucial for our community, especially to have representation of Black people in that legal system, because that's a system that really disproportionately affects our community. So how does that feel, knowing that, I can actually represent my people in the court of law, and have the best interest at mind?
No, definitely, because I think having power is really important when you know the law, you know the knowledge of the law. And I think the more of us that there are in high places or places that are influential, the better for us as a community. So I'm definitely, even though I'm not practicing at the moment, knowing that the opportunity is there if I'm ever needed to help the community in any way, I have that, I've done that, that really does feel good. And it's just like move in the right directions. We want people who are in government, we want people who are lawyers and judges. So when we have cases of people in the community that need their help, we have people there to help them.
Yeah. And like you said, even if you're not practicing right now, you still have that knowledge. So if somebody reaches out to you, yo, I just had this going on, you think I can appeal this, what's the maximum? Because I think a lot of people walk in our community, we don't have necessarily the education of the criminal justice system. So when you go to court or you have a case for something, anybody that's caught a case knows they always try and hit you with the most maximum thing. When you get the little paper that says the state versus, listen, I still have my paper that says the state versus Joshua Caleb Weed. It might be what you call it, a municipal thing, like a small minor charge, but they'll put on there, you could sit for 1 to 3 years in prison. You know what I mean? Yeah. Even though that might not be what you get, you might not even get probation, but they'll put on there, at the maximum fine is, 1 year in prison, $5,000, something crazy like that. So what's the importance of having that knowledge?
Because the thing is, when you have a situation like that and your attorney or your lawyer is someone who doesn't really care about you, doesn't really care about the community, their job is just in and out, they don't fight for you. But when you have someone who cares about you, who thinks this is another like Black life that we don't want to be lost to the system, they're more willing to fight. They're more willing to tell you, like, no, you don't do this. This is not fair. This is not justice. You're not even going to get probation for that. So it's really important having people who want the best for the community, because someone could just come and be like, they barely put up a fight for you because it's not a passion for them. Yeah. So it's really important that we have people who care about the people that are coming into the system and are looking out for them and doing the best for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And just that knowledge, not to keep talking about my own personal situation, but like I'm still paying off debt from loans that I had to take out to pay attorneys for a legal situation, when in reality, like, I probably, I feel like I was taken advantage of by those attorneys. You know what I mean? For the amount of legal fees that I had to pay, it was like I walked away basically just paying fees to the state. So it was like I was never really going to go to prison. I was never really going to get probation. Really, all it was how much am I going to have to pay to the state? So this person played on, you know, the fact that I didn't understand what was going on to say, oh, I need you to pay me $10,000 just to walk in there and talk to the judge and say, oh, how much does he have to pay?
Yeah, that's
So
definitely an
yeah,
issue.
it's like the, you know, almost like the extortion, you know, just of our community. But
Mm,
yeah, that's a blessing. That's amazing that you're doing that. And I think that, you know, in our generation, we need to do more highlighting of Black professionals, not just, you know, people that are getting money, but
mm,
what's the purpose behind getting money? You can get your money and be successful, but what's the greater purpose behind what you're doing? You know, you can,
mm,
you know, if you're doing real estate, okay, well, what's the greater purpose behind that real estate? Are you building up Black communities? Are you
mm.
giving Black families somewhere that they can stay and be treated fairly in their housing? Or, you know, if you're a lawyer, what are you doing? Are you representing, you know, trying to get people treated fairly in the criminal justice system, or are you just taking money and just sliding? So I think there's, you know, just having an appreciation for people in the community that are doing these things. So with these Yoruba lessons, what would you say is the importance of being able to speak a language that our ancestors spoke, or at least having that connection to it?
Mm. I'd say it's very, very important. I think nowadays you'll find that even in Nigeria, a lot of people can't speak their native language. It's dying out. And I think when your language dies out, when your culture dies out, who you are to some extent also dies out. If you don't know how they spoke, how they communicated, there are some things in Yoruba that can only really be expressed in Yoruba. You can't even express it in English no matter how you try.
Mm,
And when we stop speaking the language, we lose part of what it means to even be Nigerian, to be Yoruba, to be
mm,
African. And then we just end up where everyone's the same. When there's so much knowledge, there's so much power, there's so much in knowing your language, something that belongs to you, and no one can ever take. And I think it's really, really powerful when you can go out and you can be a professional, you can be all of these things that the world applauds you for, but you've still got what makes you
you.
what makes you
Mm,
African. And I just think the language is one of the biggest keys to retaining your culture and your identity and your heritage. Is one thing you can pass on that can never be taken. If you can speak your language, they can't take that from you.
yeah.
And I think that's a lot of the reasons why they changed slaves' names, because if
I
you're
was just
now
about to go
born,
into that. Come on, speak it, sis. Speak it.
because if your name is Toby, you're proud of your name, you know your name, or Ade. Like, there's a sense of pride that comes with that. But when you're now answering somebody else's name, a name that you can't even fully relate to,
Yep.
you're owned to a degree.
Yeah, there was an interview with Malcolm X, because Malcolm X and the students of Elijah Muhammad, they would place X on their last name because they said we don't know our last names because our last names were taken from us. And there was a situation where there was a white news anchor that was trying to press Malcolm X because his slave name was Malcolm Little, but he,
Mm.
you know, he changed it to El Haj Malik El Shabazz. But he kept trying to press him and say, you know, what's your last name? What's your parents' last name? And he said, well, my parents didn't even know their last name. Their last name was taken from them. So to have that, the way that you speak about yourself, the way that you look at yourself, just the framework of your identity, it like really rests upon that. What's your cultural identity? What's your name? What's the language that you speak? So if I say that my name is, you know, Smith, my name is Jones, my name is, you know, whatever, Finkelstein, some super white name, I'm sitting here saying, oh, yeah, my name's Benjamin Finkelstein as a Black man. That's crazy, you know? And when you understand that that's crazy, now it's like, okay, I got to really do something about this, because not only, even if you weren't, given as a slave, you still have the name of your slave master attached to you. So what is that saying about yourself? You're still saying generations later, I'm property. I'm owned property of these people that own my ancestors. And when I was watching your Yoruba videos, there's things, like you said, just in the small, the couple videos that I watched, it's pieces of the language that just don't even translate to English. Like the respect that you give to elders is built into the language. The value of like being home is something that's built into the language. So like it doesn't even translate into English. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely, 100%. And it's a lot of our names also even have meaning. So it's not just like a name that you can't trace the meaning. There's a reason why you're given that name. And if you, let's say my last name, for example, I could figure out where exactly that name comes from. I could tell my dad someone's name and they'll be able to tell me what part of what town of what state they come from.
Wow.
Whereas you won't, if you have an English name that's been given to you, you can't trace that. And I think that's deliberate as well. So you could never go searching for where did my ancestors come from, because you will never know. But if you have
Wow.
your original name, he'll be like, oh, only people from a certain place are called that name. So there's
That's
so much in
wild.
your name and your
That's
language.
wild. And I think that's the greatest I think just white supremacy, the transatlantic slave trade, that was the biggest thing that they took from us, was that
Mm-hmm.
understanding of who we are. That's why, people in the US here, when I be like, yeah, I'm going back to Africa, y'all, they look at me like I got 3 heads. They look at me like I'm crazy. But it's like, no, I want to figure out what we lost.
Mm-hmm.
I want to figure out what we lost, and I want my kids to grow up knowing that their father tried to get them back what was taken from them. So even if I can't go figure out exactly where I'm from, even if I don't know exactly where on the continent I'm from, I can go back and I can make the effort so that my children know that their father made an effort. We can at least point back to where he went back to. We can at least point back to where, our friends and family that we've made on the continent are. And it's so important, because we don't even know what we don't know. We don't even know what we lost.
100%. Definitely. And
So,
like you said, it's your effort that's at least shown. Like a lot of people, even in England or Britain, like first generation people who were born here, so their parents came from Africa, and they don't claim being Nigerian. They say I'm British. And even though
right.
I see myself as a British Nigerian, I can't imagine just kind of neglecting, where you came from. You can find that. Whereas there's people in America who don't even have that option. And for you to just be like, I'm just British, I just find it like, you're taking it for granted, the fact that you know where your parents came from, but you're distancing yourself from it. When a lot of
Yeah.
people
Don't
would
even know
kill.
that. Yeah. And it's crazy. Like my father, I met my father as an adult. I wasn't like raised by my father. So like, so I didn't even really have that connection just to him. But now as an adult, knowing my father and being like, yo, do you know where is it exactly in Africa that we came from? He's like, I don't know. Like maybe West Africa, maybe East Africa. Like he doesn't know. So, and then another crazy thing. So like on that side of my family, most everybody is Muslim, which but even if you study the history of just, the Indian Ocean slave trade, some of the names that we have, that's Muslim names that we look at in the US, like, oh, I'm connected with my African heritage, to say like, we're going to connect with our true names, but then they chose a Muslim name. That's not African. It's like you traded one slave master for another slave master. So, you know what I mean? So that's why I'm trying to listen. I'm going to change my name eventually, but when I do, it's going to be after I go to the continent and after I understand what that name means. I'm not just going to change my name. So like my artist name, my rapper name is Young She, because my father's name is Rashid. But as I got older and realized that's not an African name either.
No, exactly. But it's really important what you said about knowing what your name means before you like adopt it, because a lot of people are
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm going to be called, and it's not about how it sounds, it's what does it mean, because when
Yeah.
we
What's
give
the meaning of it?
yeah,
Yeah.
we give it to what we want it to reflect about the person and their life. So you want to
Right.
make sure you're choosing a name that embodies what you are and what you want to be as well.
Yeah. So, because my given name is Joshua Caleb, which I love still though, because in the Bible, Joshua and Caleb were the two spies that went into the promised land. And when everybody else was saying, we can't go, there's giants, you can't get there. How are we even going to get to the promised land? Joshua and Caleb were the two like, yo, this is our birthright to go to the promised land. So I really think that I was given that name for a reason, because I'm the one standing up in Philadelphia and saying, let's go back to Africa, or at least saying, let's connect back with who we were, before this. Because most people, I was at dinner with my brother the other day, and I was like, yeah, like my plan is I'm trying to, we're trying to buy a house right now. So I'm trying to buy a couple properties here in the US, and because the US currency is so much higher than African currency, if I just have a couple properties here, I can set myself up to where I still have income coming in from US that can fund my lifestyle in Africa, and I can actually invest back, so that when I'm moving back to Africa, I'm not just moving back with my hand out, I'm moving back with opportunities to reinvest back into the community and try and build that bridge. So I explained that to my little brother Rashid, and he was like, Africa, what you going to go live in the jungle, bro? Like what? Like, no, Africa's not like,
there's so much that's the thing as well. It's like, it's really good that you've really thought it through. You can tell because a lot of people do. There's so much people don't know about Africa. Honestly, you will have such a higher standard of living in Africa if you have money than you would here. People don't understand. Like, you'd be living the dream. Like, it's not about like, there's no jungles. I've not seen any jungles ever since I've been in Africa. Like,
it's crazy. It's crazy.
If you see some of the houses they live in over there, like your jaw would be on the ground. They're living in luxury. Like it's more than what people see. And I think it's really important that people do go back and see that Africa isn't what we think it is. There's so much here, so much investment. And you're talking about like also investing in America. Once you like are able to invest in Africa, there's no cap. You know, in the UK and in the USA, there's a cap to your limit as a black man, as a black person. In Africa, there's no cap. Like, you can be more than what you could ever dream of being in the USA.
And the resources are there. The natural resources, like Africa is the richest mineral continent in the world. And then the resources of just the people, like everything that we see in the US, or like I'm sure in the UK, is like a cap. Like, you can make it this far in the white man's world, but as soon as you hit that cap, it's like you're done. You got your house, you got your Mercedes Benz, you're in the country club, and then boom, you hit the cap. But there's no cap for you, in Africa. And then, like I said, the exchange rates of the currency, like just, as a head start, because it's not all about the money, but like as a head start, you don't need $100,000 in American US dollars to go to Africa. You don't need that. You can have what you would need to buy a house in the US and go over there and build a life and be successful.
Exactly.
And to have that currency recurring, where can you do that? The opportunity is so high. It's like, that's really our birthright to go back and succeed and give back to, and just, I don't know. I could talk till I'm blue in the face. Like I said, I could talk till I'm blue in the face.
No, definitely. It's so much.
It's just like a blessing that I try and use my platform to be like, yo, this is real. This is real. Like, people out, not just talking out here. This is real. You can really do this. You can really do this. So even I went to, when I was in high school, I took a trip to Jamaica, and that's what really like opened my eyes to like understanding the differences of currency, because I was like, man, I got US dollars that like my $1 is worth like 90 Jamaican dollars. So I was like, man, that's crazy. Like, so what? I can just buy a house out here with like $5,000-$6,000. That's crazy. And then after that, learning, like, I remember when I went to Jamaica, that's the first time I ever heard about Marcus Garvey. So I was like, who's Marcus Garvey? I started to research and learn about, his life and his teachings. And then it really just, after like years of just reading and researching, just led me to this wave of like, man, like, we got to go back and connect. We have to take back what was taken from us.
And I think as long as it's done without like trying to exploit, because a lot of people, if you're going back and you want to give back and you are kind of just open to learning and being a part of the community, they're very welcoming there. I think a lot of people also have the fear of them and us. And from my experience, unless it's someone, there is a little bit that's not great in the terms of there's a bit of a worship of the Western world. Like when people go back and they have an accent and they're like of a lighter complexion, there's a lot of they kind of prefer them to like nationals, and that can be an issue. But if you go back with an open heart and you want to give back to the community and you feel at home, no one's going to chase you away. There's no them and us. We're all black. Like no one's looking at you as other. You're just a black person who had the opportunity to be raised somewhere else.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, it's about going back to learn, but not going back to try and prop yourself up. Cause you look at, I think it was Liberia. I think it was Liberia that a bunch of American Africans went back, and like it became like a class warfare system of like the black people that were westernized because of slavery and Africans who were in Africa. Like I think, just like you said, that worship of like the Western world, that worship of like European centered society, that's what we really have to break down, so that we don't want to just move to Africa and just bring our Western way of thinking with us, because it's going to be exploitative, because we're so used to people exploiting us. We mess around, move to Africa and try and exploit everybody else. Like you really got to break that way of thinking. It's almost like to re-Africanize yourself. That's why I'm trying to learn Yoruba, because I don't know where I'm from in Africa, but that's somewhere that I can start to understand a bit of the culture, a bit of the language, just to be able to have that, you know? So that's really by the time I go back to Africa and I'm there for like 5-6 years, I'm trying to be speaking Yoruba. So I'm gonna be hitting you up. Soon for sure. Is there anything else that you want to go over, or just tell people where they can find you, where they can support, where they can, get involved in paying for your classes?
Right. So like what I would say is just not to be afraid of like just learning more, even if you don't have a desire to go to Africa, just being open-minded to learning about like Africa itself, because there's a lot of resources now, especially like on YouTube, on the internet, about just learning what Africa is really like. Because it's really a shame, I think, when people kind of have the mindset that Africa is like an underdeveloped jungle type of thing. It's actually, there's just so much you could do. I was saying like before we started that you should go for Christmas, you'd have the time of your life if you went in Lagos. So just that. In terms of finding me, I have a YouTube channel, Blessing Kayode, where I do lessons, but you can also like contact me to do one-on-one lessons, yorubalessons@gmail.com, and you can take individual lessons by yourself, yorubalessons.com. And that's pretty much it.
And they can follow you on Instagram too, right?
Oh yeah, you can. Coco _ infusion.
All right. I'll put it down here.
Great.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right.